countries in the world, 30 countries in the world that has at least $1 billion internet company. You know that? 30 countries in the world. I can't even name 30 countries in the world. 30 countries in the world. It's amazing. There are a lot of really, really cool stuff, and some of them are right here in Brazil. But aside from the World Cup, most people know nothing about Brazil. So we decided to put together a report called the Brazil Startup Report to teach people about what's happening outside the World Cup. What are the real growth opportunity? What are the real startup opportunity? What are the successes, the history of this place? And I'm very, very proud that after 6 months of interviews with hundreds of people in this place, these amazing team, our local team in Brazil, put together this report. And I'd like to invite 2 of the head authors onto stage so they can help me explain this report for the first time. This is a sneak preview. This is the first time anyone is seeing this sneak preview. We're going to launch this on next Monday, but for you guys, we're going to have a sneak preview about the world you need to know in Brazil. So I'd like to invite Drew and Diego. I put it in a lot of questions. So a quick comment about Drew and Diego. Drew is actually actually part of the World Startup Report team. This is the guy that came from America that was doing this report with me, traveling with me in South America to Chile, Argentina, Brazil. But after we finished the Brazil trip, he said to me, I think I'm gonna stay here. I love this place. I love this country, like the opportunities. I'm pretty sure it's not because of girls, but but like the opportunities and the people here, what I can do. I said, you know what? If that's what you want to do, go ahead. And about 6 months later, this guy has built his first company in Brazil. It's called Construct. It's actually a company tackling a very interesting problem into the construction business. I was so impressed by this guy, I actually decided to just give him some money. I was one of his first angel investors. So, very, very proud of you, Drew. And Diego is someone that I met about 2 years ago. When I released the China Startup Report, one guy was crazy enough to say, hey, I wish I had that for my country. So this guy flew all the way to San Francisco to come meet me. And I was like, who the hell is this guy? And crazy guy, but he came by with a bunch of nonsense stats, and I'm like, okay, fine, just go do it. Believe it or not, he actually wrote a report. He never released it. I don't think he was up to his standard, but he actually wrote a report, the first version report. That was the first version. About 6 months ago, Drew started this as well. He wrote the second version of this report with my help. He spent probably like 2-3 months on it, but they only decided not to release it because it's still not up to his standard. But these two met in the seed program. Diego turned out to be the mentor of Drew, and together they put their knowledge together. And also, Diego runs something called Dealbook.co. Do you guys know Dealbook? Quite a few people. So the two of them put their knowledge together, and together they were able to find and put something together that's really, really thoughtful and informative. So awesome job. You guys ready? You guys ready for this? Yeah. Are you gonna do the slides? So much technology here. Great. All right. So the Brazil Startup Report is a 15-minute guide, if you read it, about everything you need to know about Brazil. If somebody has no idea about Brazil, this is their guide. Okay, here's our author. Here's Diego and Drew, and there are a bunch of really awesome investors, community people, and apparently myself in there as well. Thank you, Matt. Our mission is to document and connect the startup community. And we do this actually free of charge. I'm actually just personally funding all these through the exit I had recently. It's just something I do for fun, and I hope you guys will like this. And it's run by volunteers, so. Okay, so the question I like to ask for every country is, why should I care about your country? What is the one sentence you can tell me that make me think, oh, that's actually pretty interesting? So the one line you need to know about Brazil is a gateway to Latin America. if you want to build a big company in Latin America, you have to come to Brazil. Every successful internet company will have to be in Brazil. You can start anywhere else. You can be in Argentina, Colombia, Peru, any place. But if you want to go big, this is the place, nowhere else. So at a glance, if you take a look, some of the hottest countries, like these days, like United States is also obviously the one, and then India is another one. It's an interesting comparison, and Brazil. Brazil is the 5th largest country in the world by population. It's 200 million people. Has a reasonably big GDP, 2.4 trillion. But what people don't realize is how big Brazil is. If you take a look at the area, Brazil is like 8.5 million square kilometers. That's almost more than twice of India. India has a lot more people and a lot a lot less land. Brazil is huge, so Brazil has a lot of exports, a lot of natural resources that most people do not know about, and that's their bread and butter. Brazil is also very rich. It has a lot of millionaires, almost as many millionaires as India, and I can attest to how rich Brazil is because I went to Sao Paulo, and that place is so expensive. And the one fact I'm most proud of is and I think all of you guys are most proud of is, in terms of the number of World Cup matches, you guys rock. 69 and counting. Love it. India 0. Where is Samir? Sorry, buddy. You guys just not very good at this. Yes, I'm much better than America. But let's take a look at some of the online statistics. This is what you guys care about more. These are the internet population. More than 50% of your country is already online. And that's not something that you find in a lot of places. If you go to places like Philippines, we're talking about like 25%. And I was just talking to Diego from Startup Beat. One of his members actually went to Myanmar. You know what's the internet penetration there? 1%. 1%. And you guys are actually surprisingly developed. You're actually much closer to America than you think. It's actually a very developed country. It has a lot of mobile phone. It has a lot of credit card penetration, even though most of people still use Boleto, right? Boleto? But you also have a very sizable exit. So B2W is about 2.1 billion versus the biggest company in India, which is Flipkart at 2.5 billion. But all that is much, much smaller than America. So put it into perspective, it's actually a lot smaller than America, but it's still very, very, very good. So, Carnival is a, okay, we can see, but apparently Carnival is a very, very important holiday for those of you that actually don't know. For most of the non-Brazilians, Carnival is a very, very important holiday here. This is an important slide that is a takeaway for everyone that's not from Brazil. Actually, for some people that's in Brazil, you should focus on this one. When people ask you why Brazil, you can tell them, Brazil is bigger than every other country in South America combined. If you take a look at the area, the population, the internet penetration, the number of mobile users, how much investment you have, by any measure you look at, Brazil is as big as every other country combined. This is a huge market, really, really big market, and this is why most people care about Brazil as the #1 market. Okay, and so this is the beginning of our history lesson. So I will pass the mic to Diego and tell us a little bit about how this whole startup ecosystem got started. Diego?
So, guys, 14 years ago, 15 years ago, we had the local internet companies starting. We had a very particular moment in which there were a lot happening in the internet in the US, and we started having a small but significant activity right here. We started to create our own search engines like Zik and KD, which were acquired by Star Media and later acquired by Yahoo. These were really popular destinations right here. UOL, which is a big portal and is still one of the biggest internet companies here in Brazil. They went public in 2005. I'm not sure exactly their last market cap, but it was a few billions too. And they closed their capital. did not continue public as of 2012. And we have Equan, which is from Belo Horizonte, which was the first company that acquired by Google, and they acquired them because they were developing search technology focused on the Brazilian market. So that proves that we have some really smart engineers here in Belo Horizonte working on very hard problems like natural language processing, like search engine technology. It was a very, very important fact for our ecosystem. And when the bubble burst, we had a really crisis. A lot of companies died. Most of these companies died except you all. But the ones that survived, these are still some of the biggest internet companies in Brazil. The ones that were founded here, like UOL, Buscapé, and others that weren't founded here, like Decolar and Mercado Livre as well. The companies who survived that hard times, they are some of the biggest companies in Brazil today. And bubble burst, we had years without any startup activity. Nobody talked about startups. It was only me and my buddy Diego writing like crazy about startups that were starting to exist. And in 2009, it happened something very interesting. The world was going through a big crisis. Brazil was not affected by that crisis. And back in 2009, Naspers acquired Buscapé for more than $300 million. And that was very important because people wanted to talk about startups, to read about startups. I remember when Diego broke the news with an interview with Romero from Buscapé. It was a very important moment because starting up a company became something that people would consider again. And back then, it wasn't a career option. It wasn't something people understand if you said the word startup. So right after that, we have a few crazy years with lots of VCs and money being poured in our startups. We like to call this the attack of the clones. So every proven and successful business model in the US was trying to be replicated here, and a lot of funding was coming into these companies. So these are some of the companies who were founded during this time span. So Dafiti is from Rocket Internet. They try to be the Amazon for Brazil. They are very big and very successful, and their investors have very deep pockets to stay, hold tight their position as the leader in Brazil. And they are also expanding to other countries in Latin America. Brains Club is a clone of Guild. It's a private sales club. They picked a lot of money, but they had lots of troubles, and right now they are in a bad moment. And Peixe Urbano was the first Groupon clone in Brazil. They grow very fast. They had a lot of success in the beginning, and then Rocket Internet entered here with City Deals, and then with Groupon, and they faced a very complicated moment. Right now they are restructuring the company. So by 2010 to 2012, to raise money, basically, I'm oversimplifying, but basically what you needed to do is say, hey, I'm doing this for Brazil, this with a Brazilian twist. And it was a very interesting moment because everyone was putting money in these companies, and sometimes there were 3 companies in the same sector getting a lot of VC money and putting the traffic prices and all that stuff very, very high. So from 2003 to now, we see a different moment, a very, very particular one, in which these guys, these foreigners, they are not actively investing in Brazil like Sequoia is not. Sequoia Capital, which is one of the biggest VCs in the world, and Accel Partners, these guys are not exactly looking into Brazil anymore. Right now we have a particular moment in which these guys are putting money in the local funds because they understand that they do not understand the market. And this is very interesting. So when these investors get nervous, the local investors start taking their positions and making the bigger deals and trying to prepare companies for growth and putting their own investments. We do not have as intense venture capital activity as we had 2 years ago, but it is there and it's happening, and there are companies raising their funding rounds every week. And basically, I think I told the whole story about what's a very simplified one about what's in this huge chunk of text. So right now we have some very successful companies that are growing a lot. I picked a few that we admire that's been having a lot of capital, a lot of adoption. I know a lot of you guys buy here buy in the city. You go with a cab, you pick with Easy Taxi. You probably use RD Station for your marketing efforts. Your companies, a lot of them use Conta Azul as the ERP and your accounting software. These are companies that are doing very well in the local landscape by now. So, should I continue? Okay, so here we pick a few angel investors, accelerators, and VCs who are guys who are, these are sorted by the number of investments in the last few years. So some of the more prominent angel investors here in Brazil are Florianotto, which was from Groupon, Kai Schoppen, which we work at Rams Club, and he has many other investments here. Fabrice Grinda, which is the co-CEO of OLX. Manuel Lemos from Abril, Luciano Tavares from Magnetis, and Cássio Espina from Anjos do Brasil. These are the guys that we see in a lot of deals, and you should talk to if you're starting a company. There's a big list of accelerators there. I think I don't need to read it all. And these are the VCs who are more active in Brazil right now. And Kasek, Monaxis, Tiger, Rocket, Redpoint, eBricks, Insight Venture Partners, 500 Startups, Drive Capital, Astella. These VCs are actually doing deals right now. And some people may say that there's not a lot of VC activity going on, but these guys are consistently doing investments.
So like just one thing, who's doing a startup right now? Okay, all of you guys, please give a round of applause to these two for putting together all this information so that they're doing your homework right now, okay? If you give us money, these are the guys you need to go talk to. Next slide.
So, and on the other side, we have blogs that you should follow, meetups you should attend, and events and conferences. If you're an entrepreneur, you must read Start2P. This is a little, it's a very popular and exciting blog. The other one is a smaller one, which I write to, which is Webholic. We have Exame PME. We have 2 videocasts that are very cool, Man in the Arena and Terceiro Turno. I am part of Terceiro Turno. Startup Stars is a cool blog on the topic. There are many meetups, and you probably get to know many of those. And there are many events and conferences that you should attend, or you should at least get to know people who are talking on there and looking for opportunities to network when you're starting out.
Okay, before you go on the next slide, I just want you guys to know, if you need to get on media, if you need to get on Start2P, the founder of Start2P is sitting right there. Diego, raise your hand. Okay, go chase after this guy and talk to this guy about your startup. Make him write about your startup. Do all of your homework. You should buy us drinks tonight, okay? Beer tonight, okay? Next slide.
So, Brazil is a very diverse country, and this citation shows exactly it. We are a diverse country. Anyone can be Brazilian.
Okay, so I think it's good for me to take over, because these are the surprises that the team has found. Like, actually, a lot of the people outside of Brazil look at Brazil and say, like, okay, what's different about Brazil? What should I know that will surprise me? So there are the few of the surprises that we found to be very, very interesting. Number one, trust is something that is different. But in America, you trust somebody by default until they prove to you that it is they're not trustworthy. In Brazil, I have a feeling that like people here that they actually do not trust people by default. Is that correct?
Yeah, you gotta go out to dinner with them about. Well, you gotta go out to dinner with them and have probably about 3 meals, or you need to go and just sleep on a roof with them during Carnival. And then they'll become like your best mentor, which is what I did with Diego. So he put me up on a roof, and when we didn't necessarily complain, he said, okay, we trust these guys, we can probably put them through anything, and they're worth our time. So you definitely need to work in order to make friends here. That's your first step in kind of any sort of business relationship, which can tend to make the sales cycles a little bit longer.
And you found out that the foreigners are actually of love here. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, I mean, just for me being someone from outside, in comparison to when I worked in Argentina, definitely a lot more welcomed here as a foreigner. I thought that a lot of people really wanted to do business with us, and as a result, being a foreign entrepreneur here, especially one being from Silicon Valley, it really opened up a lot of doors for me. And got me intros into local heroes and ecosystem heroes and things like that. But as you start to go down this, yeah, you get the intro, but it's still up to you to cultivate the relationship. And so that's why friendship and celebration and going out sometimes ends up being more valuable than really like knocking on their door and trying to sell them. They'd rather go out and watch a World Cup game with you, and then they'll do business with you because you're friends, not necessarily because your product's number one.
So that's great that you bring us here this week, because now we can do all the World Cup stuff and make a lot of friends, then we can do business here.
Exactly.
Perfect.
That's why the conference is at the end, right?
All right, so then we look into the culture aspect, like what's the Brazilian culture like, and what's the startup culture like? And this is where we found some trouble with Brazil, because we found out that the Brazilian culture actually does not work very well with startup culture. Because why? Well, startups in America, we work really, really hard, like every single day. There's no Saturday, Sundays. We work every day. Like we just make sure we eat enough that we don't die. Every other waking moment we're decoding. But I noticed here, if you have a match, I think like the whole world stops, especially if Brazil plays. And I found out that Brazil only worked about 228 days. And can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of national holidays here. There are a lot of benefits that employees get that will end up costing, whatever salary you agree to, it will end up being about double that. So whenever someone tells me, I'm forming a contract with an employee, if I'm not forming it on CNPJ, people will usually tell me, okay, we'll make sure that you only agree to about 9,000, because they're actually going to end up being about 18,000 after taxes as you start to go on. But there are many ways to get around this. Matt Montenegro taught me a lot of them about how to go through and make separate agreements in order to kind of avoid these types of taxes. But if you consider the fact that they only work about 44 hours a week, and that's illegal if they do, and then if you also factor in that they get paid a 13th month salary, 30 days paid vacation, which wasn't actually subtracted out of those 350 days, that it comes down to about 228 days. My original estimate was actually about 190, but Luciano Tavares argued me out of it.
So we're not going to go through everything on the slide. You guys can read this yourself on Monday. So the takeaway for everyone that's building business here is if you want to build a successful business, take a look at how other people do work. Take a look at how punctual a German is. Take a look at how much they under-promise and over-deliver, and really take the Brazilian culture out of you if you want to be a successful entrepreneur. Sorry if I offended anybody. So actually, that's actually a good part about our report, is that we try to do a very candid review. So we don't try to only talk about the good thing, we also talk about the bad thing. So you'll see both sides. This is why people really love reading our reports, because they can see both sides. On one end, Brazil is an amazing place, an amazing opportunity. On the other end, there are problems. There are some serious problems in the culture and in the way that, some of the regulations. We'll get into that in a little bit. So on the online culture, we found out that Brazilians are actually very, very active on Facebook, wasting a lot of time. And they love e-commerce. Brazilians love to buy things, even though it doesn't really make any sense to me. Why do Brazilians like to buy things? Can you explain to me?
Because it's such a pain to go and park at the store. Logistically, trying to do different logistical things, it just becomes a hassle. So a lot of people just want to go through e-commerce instead. But at the same time, even though it makes things a lot easier for consumers, it also makes things a lot harder for e-commerce businesses, because things like free returns are really going to catch an entrepreneur off guard here if you try and do that. It's really difficult to do. We have one of our roommates, Alex, actually is in the back. We started a payment platform that actually makes returning money a lot easier for some of these e-commerce companies. So yeah, for the most part, early adopters, e-commerce is still a really hot market here with an average ticket price of about 170. And as Matt actually pointed out earlier, the majority of like this social content marketing and things like that are coming from Brazil. So I don't know if it's necessarily wasting time, but it's this, things tend to be organized on Facebook here. High-level introductions will come through Facebook. And I also think it also transfers to kind of this online culture and being focused on friendship. You want to be able to trust someone, so what do? Go Facebook stalk them to learn as much as you can.
And I found out that, like, actually, I think we had this chat before, right? About like all the South American country. The difference between a country like Colombia and Brazil is Colombia is very much against new technology. Peru as well, whereas Brazil, they're very open to new technology. And this is great news for all of you guys here, because you have a very good crowd of people that love to use internet, they love to buy stuff, and they love to try new stuff. This makes a great market. Next slide. And physical infrastructure is where you guys will have a lot of trouble. I'm sure a lot of you know is that not a lot of roads, and then there's a lot of traffic, and there's issues in a lot of different places. But it's okay, because these are things that will get better. These are not the things that will stay a problem forever. And if you build a company right now, you'll be in better position to succeed in the future when things are better. If you try to build things when they're better, then there will be a lot more competitors. Does that make sense? The technological infrastructure. Diego, can you comment on this a little bit? So what do you mean by Brazil lacks an API ecosystem?
Well, you are a developer. In the US you have Stripe if you want to build easy.
Yep.
In Brazil we have a few startups trying to do that yet, but we don't have a major player offering a great payment infrastructure. And it's not for payment, it's for logistics, for tracking, for shipping. Overall, those APIs that you need to use to build a business that are available in more developed markets, they aren't yet available here in Brazil.
Okay, and I'll explain the next one because it's really, really funny. Because when somebody I asked the question, I think, it's like, what is the innovation in Brazil? And somebody told me, it was like, boleto. It's like, what is a boleto? So for the people that don't know boleto is basically you buy something online, you get a serial number, and you go to the store and you pay for it physically in the store. So this way you don't have to do payment on the internet. Why is this funny? Well, the guy said, people use boleto or installments for everything. They pay for things offline, and then they also pay for things over a long period of time. And it's like, tell me one example that's interesting. He said, well, I run a hair care company online, and somebody purchased shampoo and then decided to pay for it over a 6 month period. Apparently, installment on boleto is a must in this place. And also, when you're actually building a company on a mobile device, you have to be careful because 3G in this country apparently is only 1G because they only have to pay do 30% of the speed that they promise you to do. It's wonderful. By the way, my phone stopped working. Why? That's not even 30% now. Taxes. Taxes is what I heard from most of you that is the #1 problem here in Brazil. So either one of you want to take a look at that?
I think Drew is better on that than myself.
Yeah, that was the whole permanent visa argument that kind of started at a seed too. Just basically, it's really hard to issue an invoice to begin with, being a foreigner here. You have to go through a lot of hoops, get a procurador to agree to take on 1% of the risk of your company. And then also, have all sorts of like different bureaucratic obstacles that you need to walk through. But there's basically two types of tax regimes here. There's lucro real and lucro presumido. And both systems, if I go into the details of each one, they get very, very complicated. But basically, lucro presumido, they'll usually take about 17% on every invoice as a foreigner. If you are lucky to be a native Brazilian founding a company, you will be able to only get taxed 8%, like Matt's able to do over there, as a sin place. So it's great for local entrepreneurs, horrible for foreign entrepreneurs. The idea of being taxed on your revenue is just something that's completely foreign to someone from the United States and goes against everything I ever learned in business school. But whatever, that's how it is. And I think the worst part about it is that with lucro presumido, in terms of setup costs, in terms of bureaucracy, to be taxed lucro real, you're just better off going lucro presumido in the beginning in order to avoid bureaucracy and not have to hire more accountants. And that's been kind of the advice of every single lawyer that I've met here so far.
If you're from the government, please pay attention. This is one of the major problems like with foreign entrepreneurs right now. Okay, another problem. Okay, I guess this is pretty obvious. Like dealing with the government is actually very, very tough. It takes a long time to like get any license. I'm sure you guys like dealt with a few of those examples.
Yeah, I still remember Andre Valencia, who came up and talked to one of us. He was standing there in front of Steve, and I said, "Man, look, I just got our first client." And then all of a sudden, I said, "But I can't invoice them. Why? Because it's literally going to take me 3 months in order to be able to open a company and do it legally." So luckily, we have a guy who owns another company who invoices for us right now while we get our corporate structure set up. But you can plan on about 3 months being able to incorporate a company here as a foreigner. There's no legal templates. In fact, things like LegalZoom, I believe, are illegal here. You can't have an online legal consulting, so you have to go to an advogado in person, which means you're not building a scalable solution. There's not systems like Founders Workbench where you can just go and generate all of your documents in 10 minutes, all your vesting agreements, everything at a price of absolutely zero. You got to plan on spending about $3,000 just to set up your company. And yeah, it's even worse for foreigners. But
so for the local guys here, in America, apparently you can just generate all your documents. You don't have to go see a lawyer in the beginning. Like all the basic stuff is done for you. It's only when you get a little bit bigger that you need to see more and more lawyers. But in the beginning, the very, very basic stuff, like all the documents on there already. So that makes your life a lot easier. We wish like something like that would happen here in Brazil as well.
May I add just a little bit on the topic? So one thing is that if you want to start a traditional company, a mom and pop shop or something like that, it's not that complicated. You don't need a lawyer to do that. But if you want to start a startup and have shareholders agreements and have vesting and all those best practices without which you can't start a company that will scale without, you definitely need to have a lawyer and have someone to help you, because it gets complicated really, and you usually pay your lawyers by the hour in Brazil. Anyways.
Okay, the next part is then how much does it cost? If I really can deal with all the bureaucracy, if I really want to start a company here, how much does talent cost in this country? And then, as we found out, it costs a whole lot of money. My God, your country is really expensive. But fortunately, if you're in the startup scene, you can actually get someone for a lot cheaper. You're looking at between $20,000 to about $40,000. But some of the interesting thing to know about the people in this country, if you want to hire somebody, number one is that it costs a lot of money, a lot of taxes, but also employees can be very dangerous, because if they sue you, then you potentially will have to pay a lot more. Can you elaborate on that?
yeah, it's also just in terms of, the government's usually going to take the side of the employee in any sort of argument. So this is also...
Why is that? Why do they take the side of the employees?
It's very pro-labor here. I mean, you could argue that there is a populist government at times. And so as a result, they're always going to take the side of, the laborer. And, that's great in terms of then you're trying to motivate people on your team to really want to go and work really, really hard for you, and who buy into this mission. But then all of a sudden, I don't know, you end up hurting their feelings or doing something that's not necessarily right, and they can take you to court and tie you all up in a legal dispute, and you're probably not going to win it. So it's probably best to settle, and instead just put a time clock on your wall so that they punch in and punch out, so that you hedge all of your liability against overworking somebody.
So there are a few more rules and regulations, but basically if you do want to actually set up a company here, be a little bit careful about how you hire and fire people. And competition. This is actually a pretty interesting slide that we'll be talking about. So despite what you guys might believe, Brazil has one of the lowest competition among all the major countries. Lowest. If you go to China, if you go to America, if you go to places like Japan, there are a lot more established ecosystem. So for every idea that come out of America, if it comes out of on TechCrunch, like on Monday, by Tuesday, like it's already in China. I'll give you an example. So in LinkedIn, we spent a whole year building this new homepage, a whole year, okay? And it came out on TechCrunch. A week later, it was copied pixel by pixel by a Chinese company. It took a whole year in LinkedIn, and we have like 1,000 engineers in China, like a week. And our friends like in a joke about, it's like that guy probably got fired because he didn't get it done in 2 days. So when Groupon came about, I'm sure there are a few Groupon like Pixie Urbano, but in China, there were between 3,000 to 5,000 Groupons in China. Okay, that's a lot more competition. So it's a lot harder to do a company in China versus here. You probably only have maybe 10, 20 competition. So you guys are very, very lucky because not a lot of people want to come to Brazil. It's too hard, too crazy. But if you're already here, you have very little competition. So this is one area that can help you guys a lot. And bureaucracy can sometimes be a benefit too because it keeps a lot of competition out. And it's a very young ecosystem. There's a lot of opportunity for you guys. This is very, very good. Fundraising. Diego, you want to talk a little bit about fundraising?
Different from the US, which is common for a guy. I will bootstrap my company through my credit card. You definitely can't do that here. Our taxes for interest rates for credit cards are absurd. It's a lot more complicated to try to finance yourself and get a small business loan to start than in the US.
How much is the credit card rate here?
Close to 10%, I think.
Oh, a month. It's like a year? It's like not too bad.
A month. I had to negotiate very hard to get 6% of my credit card. So, bootstrapping here is really different because that small amount of money that you need to get started, the very one, you have to save it or you can't do it. You can't finance yourself through your credit card or with a small business loan. Basically, if you want a small business loan, you have to give your house to the bank. Also, another interesting fact is that very few angels here are experienced. You have a lot of guys who say, hey, I'm an angel investor, I will invest in your company, but these guys, they only have the money. Sometimes they do not have the knowledge that you need to help you grow. He has not been there, done that. So even if you try to raise from a guy who has not this expertise, at least be aware that this guy is giving me only the money and not the whole thing.
So you should probably look through our prior list of this angel. These are the angels that they know that he's a very, very good angel, very good experienced angel. You should try to raise one of these people first against like any random angels.
A fun fact, when we were raising our first angel investors, a lot of guys sent us some really ridiculous terms because they weren't experienced as angels. And a lot of those tried to give us a room in their companies and say, hey, we will give you a room, we will give you 2 computers, you can...
50% of the company.
That's basically that. So you do not expect a lot of experienced angel investors. There are 3 major players leading Series A rounds in Brazil right now. There are a few others, but these are the most active ones over the last 3 years, which are Monax, Kasek, and Abrix. Sometimes these guys bring international VCs to work with them. Sometimes the founder brings these international VCs to help. But most of the time, these guys are leading the local A rounds. And try to stay close to a community or to a tech hub. We have a great community in Belo Horizonte. There are some good communities in Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo. Try to stay close to other guys who are trying to do the same that you do. You are trying to build a company. You need to have guys to talk about it, experiences to share and to learn from other guys within that. Because if you do it alone, you won't be able to get the connections you need to fundraise and get the experience you need to surpass the challenges.
Okay, so skipping ahead, so this is a fun one. So a lot of people ask me, okay, so I heard there are a few government programs in Brazil. What's the difference? So we put the two main programs here, Seed versus Startup Brazil. So I know this is a pretty sensitive topic, but let's tackle it. Let's hear what the difference.
Yeah, so there's also Startup Rio, but that we were going to list on there. But as a lot of people pointed out to me, it hasn't necessarily gotten off the ground yet. I don't know if they've taken on their first class or not. So based on the total number of companies, these are kind of your two main ones. And obviously, what's great is that the competition between these two programs is really, really fierce right now. Here in Brazil, and like I said, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the government right now is PT. And right here in Minas Gerais, you have another party which is called PSDB. And it's a big election year this year with, what direction is the country going to take. So as a result, Seed is the state government, tends to be a little bit more conservative. Startup Brazil, the federal government, offering more money. Here offering less money, but obviously a much lower cost of living here in Belo Horizonte in comparison to Rio or Sao Paulo. State versus federal. The other ones for Startup Brazil, you have a required participation with a private accelerator. So basically that 20,000 reais that is injected into your company comes with a lot of handcuffs. You also cannot spend it on anything that's outside of the country, so no employees outside the country, and you can't spend any of the money on technological infrastructure. So what ends up happening is you can do this, you can use that money to employ Brazilian citizens, and then the other 50,000 reais that you need for technological infrastructure and for going after getting these other key elements of your business, well, that's got to come from a private accelerator, and they're going to take a cut of your business, and usually they're going to price it in to the amount that the government gave you, and that can get kind of complicated. And especially for us, for me especially, one of the biggest things was just the amount of help that we got with our visas, how flexible people were willing to be with the use of funds, if you could really justify it, and the office space obviously a lot better than a lot of the other accelerators that were participating in the Startup Brazil program. So for me, it really kind of comes down to, I believe there's a quote on the next slide from Eric Archer, and I actually quoted this when I went and spoke to the governor the other day. He said it so right. If the government wants to help entrepreneurs, they shouldn't incentivize them with more capital. They should be removing bureaucratic obstacles. And one of the ways that our startup was able to move so much faster than another similar startup that was in Startup Brazil, they had more money, but this other foreign team didn't have help with visas, had to spend all this money really, really quickly and only on Brazilian employees, which we've already decided are a lot harder to deal with than an American employee, just in how much bureaucracy there is around them. So for us, I think that this community here in BH especially is really motivated to remove obstacles and create a much more streamlined way. And right now, we're kind of at that point where the government's kind of rocky right now, especially with the protests in the street, where we might be able to push through some of this legislation to hopefully create the Delaware of Brazil here in Minas Gerais is the hope.
So is anybody here from Startup Brazil? Good. Okay, so we can talk about the bad things about Startup Brazil. Just don't put it on Startup View, okay? Okay, so we're gonna skip through a few slides really quickly because I think we'll reserve time for you guys to ask those questions. So competitive advantage in Brazil, lots of engaged internet users, very little competition, and then people in this country love to spend money. So these are great things for a startup. Okay. Now, next thing, opportunities. There are a lot of opportunities in the country, particularly a lot of B2B software, a lot of e-commerce, and then a lot of infrastructure logistics. These are three areas that are very, very lacking in this country. So I think if you're in any of these three spaces, it's going to be a lot of fun. Here's actually a map of all of the opportunities we mapped out. These are opportunities that you see in every part of the world. These are the companies. Everyone needs to go have a dating website in their country. Everyone needs to have a site to buy things. Everyone needs to go rent something like a car, or a hotel, or even to go to travel. So if you know these already exist in your country, I want to see which one of these is already mature, which one of these are still in infancy. So you should look at this and take a look at what are the opening gap in your country. Well, you don't have to take pictures. We can show you the slide on Monday. And then the local entrepreneurs. Okay, so here's our advice for local entrepreneurs. So you want to take a look at it?
Yeah, you can take this one.
So the first advice we offer to local entrepreneurs is just stop waiting and jump. Start working, start iterating, start getting feedback. Don't wait for the ecosystem to help you. Don't wait for the investors to appear. They won't appear on the day one. So just start working and be hands-on and be aware of the seed funding gap. It's in Brazil, the first investment round is usually the most difficult one. After you start to get some traction, you start to grow your company, sell or get revenues or get an insane traction. You won't have that hard time trying to fundraise. So you must try to prove your business model fast in order to get money. And another important advice is you don't need to be a visionary. I'm not saying that we won't have a technological innovation company here in Brazil. We can have something really huge with a very intense technical background, but that's not the easiest path, in my opinion. You may understand the local needs and try to address the needs of the local market. Different from Israel, for example, which has a small and limited local market. They have to be extremely innovative, and they have lots and lots of engineers with awesome hardcore technical background. We don't have that much technical talent, and we don't have access to funding to build extremely innovative companies. I think this is something that every local entrepreneur should be aware and consider before starting your own company.
Okay, and the forum one, let's do it quickly.
Yeah, so like I said, you got to learn the Brazilian way of doing business. It is very, very different compared to other places where I've done business. You need to learn Portuguese. You need to be able to communicate with everybody. That's key. I think you can actually use Gringo to your advantage as well. You can get those introductions. People are sometimes more willing to trust a foreigner than they are willing to trust their own Brazilian. I don't know another Brazilian citizen. I don't know why, but everything that's made in America seems to be something that's really, really good here.
How many of you guys are actually foreign entrepreneurs? Foreign people? Okay, so most of you guys are actually local entrepreneurs. Okay.
Yep. Stay clear of markets that can be where you can be disrupted. You don't want to end up in a legal battle because you're just going to end up spinning your wheels, run out of capital, and if you don't know the language, you're probably not going to be able to defend yourself very well either. There are a lot of top-notch MBAs here who came down when Brazil was really, really hot. They just said, hey, I know all this investment money is going into Brazil. I'm going to take just some commodity business model that we showed, try and apply it here, but they're all very, very well connected to all the money that came into the country earlier. And I honestly think that we're at the start of, like Samir was saying, this renaissance that's happening here. We've been able, especially at our company, just to pull a lot of developers from places like Google, from these large sort of mining and technology companies, and I think that the opportunity is closing and that Brazil is starting to realize how big the opportunity is here, and you're going to see a lot of locals fill in and take that spot away from the foreigners, the same way that happened in China Chinese, they don't want another gringo to come in and solve their business problems anymore. They can do it themselves. I think it'll be the same here.
And this is a quick slide about for the investors. If you want to look into Brazil, the exit is not going to be in the $1 billion range. It's going to be between $10 to $100 million range. Some of the things I will say like is, I guess like, do you want to comment a little bit about that?
If you're invested in Brazil, you definitely need to have a lawyer. You must understand the best investment vehicle for you. You can't put money in a company in your own name. You must incorporate your financial institution and do that because of some liabilities you may have. Or invest abroad. Usually some companies here incorporate abroad to get funding from foreign investors too. Another tip that I would say for foreign investors is consider investing in a local fund, because if you're a foreigner, you don't have pipeline, you don't know exactly how to evaluate hundreds of companies because you do not understand the market very well. There are some local VC funds that are doing very well, and you could probably invest in Brazil through them. That's something to consider. And the fourth point, it was an advice from one of our investors, Luciano. He said, in Brazil, companies take twice as long to mature because they have to navigate a lot of issues, they have to deal with bureaucracy. So if you won't grow in the same speed as an equivalent US company most of the time.
All right, so we're gonna skip the foreign companies, and then in conclusion, I just want to say like, from doing this report with these guys, it's very, very obvious that it is not the best place to do business. It has a lot of problems, a lot of problems. But you have to ask yourself, why do people keep on going to Brazil? And the answer is, you know what? There's a huge opportunity. It's a huge open market. A lot of people are going to be very successful in the near future, and all of you guys should be extremely, extremely excited about that. All right, it's bigger than not the other. So if you have more information, if you want to look at more, we'll post this report online on Monday, and then we will also open a wiki so you guys can actually contribute more information. So basically, I just want to say like these guys have spent the last however many months doing the homework for all of you guys. So one last round of applause for all these awesome folks.